At DSW, we ask the important questions, like, what shoes are you going to wear? Whether you're prepping for wedding season, festival season, or just planning the ultimate vacay, the right shoes can make or break an RSVP. So own the moment. You've got big plans, and we've got just the shoes. At the perfect price, of course. Get ready to get ready with Designer Shoe Warehouse. Head to your DSW store or dsw.com today and let us surprise you.
Take the exit. Turn right into the drive-thru.
Nope, I'm making dinner tonight.
You don't have time. Josh has practice.
Oh, that's right. I'll just get a salad.
And fries?
No, just the salad.
But salad cancels fries.
Salad only.
Fries.
Salad.
Fries.
Food noise isn't fair, but Mochi Health is. The affordable GLP-1 source that puts you on the road to successful weight loss.
Hey, can I get the...
Fries.
Salad. Sorry.
Learn more at joinmochi.com. Mochi members have access to licensed physicians and nutritionists. Results may vary.
Voices for Justice is a podcast that uses adult language and discusses sensitive and potentially triggering topics, including violence, abuse, and murder. This podcast may not be appropriate for younger audiences. All parties are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Some names have been changed or omitted per their request or for safety purposes. Listener discretion is advised.
My name is Sarah Turney, and this is Voices for Justice. Today I'm discussing the case of Kristen Modafferi. In 1997, 17-year-old Kristen finished her first year of college at North Carolina State University. But after classes ended, she had no plans to enjoy a lazy summer. Instead, she devised a plan to take another class across the country in California. It would be a few short months to enjoy the Golden State and gain some independence as she entered adulthood. She was smart, ambitious, and had a solid plan. But just 23 days after she landed in California, she disappeared. This is the case of Kristen Modafferi. Turning 18 and moving to California, especially in the 90s, was a dream for so many American teenagers. This was only further solidified by the media. So many of these iconic 90s cult classic TV shows and movies were set in the Golden State. Think Clueless, The Craft, Beverly Hills 90210, Saved by the Bell, Moesha, Party of Five. The list is seemingly endless. There was also the music scene, with bands like Green Day, The Offspring, Sublime, Blink-182, Rage Against the Machine, Third Eye Blind, and No Doubt all getting started in California. This boom of culture also extended to technology in Silicon Valley, like the birth of the World Wide Web and the first iMac. Combine all that with classic attractions like their beautiful beaches and iconic landmarks like Disneyland, the Hollywood sign, and the Golden Gate Bridge. California seemed to have it all in the 90s. It was truly a moment in American history that feels unlike any other. I really want to drive home that it wasn't just a place. It was a fantasy that represented freedom, sunshine, beauty, fame, and the promise of becoming someone bigger than you were before you came. So personally, I totally get why 17-year-old Kristen Modafferi wanted to spend the summer there in 1997. She pitched it to her parents in the spring, and while they weren't jumping for joy at the idea, it was clear Kristen had a plan and a good head on her shoulders. There was no real reason to tell her no. While she was born in Danbury, Connecticut in 1979, the second of 4 daughters to her parents Debbie and Bob, she moved with her family to Charlotte, North Carolina when she was 10. And she was your classic, gifted overachiever described as brilliant, spirited, and precocious. She skipped a grade in elementary school, and her mom Debbie told Andrew Chamings and Katie Dowd with SF Gate that Kristen would even correct her teachers. Eventually, she graduated from Providence High School in Charlotte, and her near-perfect SAT scores helped her earn a 4-year Park Scholarship to North Carolina State University, where she was an industrial design major. That scholarship basically covered everything: tuition, fees, room and board, books, and more. It's one of the best scholarships I've ever seen, and Kristen definitely deserved it. Her freshman year in 1996 and 1997 went well. So well that she wanted to take another course over the summer, a photography class offered through her school's honors program. There was just one thing, one hurdle that she had to get over. The class was at UC Berkeley in California, and Kristen was still 17. But Kristen is brilliant. She has a plan. She uses message boards to research programs and find a room to sublet in Oakland for $500 a month before even approaching her parents. She has this all buttoned up and ready to go. She's also going to pitch this to her parents in a way that they can't refuse. After all, they are the ones who brought her to the Bay Area in 1994 on a family vacation and sparked her love for this part of California. Plus, she would be 18 by the time she made the trip. So Kristen pitches this idea to her parents, and they're a little torn. Her mom says she was pretty leery about it and didn't want Kristen to go. She felt like she was just too young and not mature enough. But Kristen pushes back. According to Debbie, she tells her mom she really wants to go. She basically says, "Come on, are you really going to say no?" And her dad, Bob, is on board. He thinks it'll be a good experience for Kristen. In the end, both of Kristen's parents see how excited she is to spend the summer in the Bay Area. And again, her plan is solid. There was really no good reason to tell her no. So Kristen pays the $900 for tuition for the class with her own money and lands in California on June 1st, 1997, her 18th birthday. She was excited, she had a plan, and a good head on her shoulders. It was only for a summer, but it was her first taste of freedom away from her family, a real chance to spread her wings. She was following the same dream so many American teenagers had in 1997 to go to California, and she made it happen through hard work and perseverance. It feels like she did everything right to get to this point. But on just the 23rd day of Kristen being in California, something went terribly wrong. 2 days later, her parents got the first available flight out and then drove straight to the Oakland Police Department to discuss her disappearance. This episode of Voices for Justice is brought to you by Quince. I've been trying to be more intentional about what I wear each day. I'm leaning into pieces that feel effortless, comfortable, and still put together, and Quince has been my go-to. The fabrics feel elevated, the fits are flattering, and everything just works without overthinking it. They use premium materials like 100% European linen, organic cotton, and ultra-soft denim. And the best part? Everything is priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. They work directly with ethical factories and cut out the middlemen, so you're paying for quality and craftsmanship, not brand markup. I recently just ordered their tiered linen dress, of course in black. I wanted to pair it with one of my favorite pairs of brown wedges. The problem was, I didn't have a brown purse. So I got that from Quince too. It's one of my favorite outfits. It's easy, effortless, and feels amazing, especially as we're getting a little bit warmer here in Phoenix. Refresh your everyday with luxury you'll actually use. Head to quince.com/justice for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/justice for free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/justice. This episode of Voices for Justice is sponsored by Chewy. If you have pets, you probably know about Chewy, and you also know that when they say that they have everything you need to keep your pet happy and healthy, they're not messing around. To keep them happy, Chewy has over 100,000 products from all the brands my pets love at prices I love. To keep them healthy, Chewy offers pet prescriptions, pet insurance, telehealth vet visits, and they're even rolling out vet clinics across the country. I've been shopping with them for a very long time. And in addition to the auto-ship feature that gets the dog's food to them every single month, I also love to experiment with different treats. But I'm a bit picky. For me, it has to be high quality with simple ingredients. I recently picked up treats from Shepherd Boy Farms that are 100% just chicken breast. Popcorn and Heber are already obsessed. Chewy has everything you need to keep your pet happy and healthy. And right now, you can save $20 on your first order and get free shipping by going to chewpanions.chewy.com/Sarah E. Turney. That's chewpanions.chewy.com/Sarah E. Turney to save $20 on your first order with free shipping. chewpanions.chewy.com/Sarah E. Turney. Minimum purchase required. New customers only. Terms and conditions apply. See site for complete details. Kristen Modafferi landed in the Bay Area on her 18th birthday, June 1st, 1997. First on her agenda is moving into her room at 274 Jane Avenue in Oakland. It's an apartment she'll share with 4 male roommates. They largely haven't been named in the media, but we do know that they were at least a few years older than Kristen and have been described as young professionals. We also know that they were used to living with a woman. Kristen's actually subletting the room from another young woman who was away for the summer. The living situation has been described as you might imagine a house of 5 young people living in a pretty exciting city to be. There are a lot of people coming and going all the time. Work, friends, parties. Again, it's 5 young people living together. But Kristen gets moved in and everything seems to be going well. In just a few days, she also secures a job at Spinelli's coffee shop. It's about 10 miles from where she's staying, just across the Bay Bridge at a shopping center called the Crocker Galleria. She also got a second job at the cafe inside the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art. That's about half a mile away from Spinelli's. Her photography class at Berkeley doesn't start until June 24th, so she's got about 3 weeks to settle in and just enjoy her time there. According to reporting by SF Gate, Kristen established a pretty solid routine. She'd catch the BART from 19th Street for her 7 a.m. shift at Spinelli's, work until about 3 p.m., and then explore and photograph the city. She also signed up for belly dancing classes at the local YMCA. Of course, we don't know everything about Kristen's time in California. Most of what we do know comes from her roommates and coworkers, but they even say that Kristen spent most of her time outside the house working, exploring the city, and taking photos. Which makes sense to me. She's new to the city, so she's spending a lot of time alone. But of course, she's not always alone. We know that Kristen is smart and sensible, but she's also an 18-year-old looking to have a good time. About 2 weeks into her stay, on Friday the 13th, she goes to a concert that feels like peak 90s entertainment. It's the Live 105 Music Festival at the Shoreline Amphitheater right off the South Bay. It's a beautiful venue. The lineup includes bands like Blur, Social Distortion, and the iconic Fiona Apple, just days after she released her single Criminal, which would later launch her into stardom and earn her a Grammy. It seems like a great show, and it appears Kristen felt the same way, because she stays so late that she misses the last train home. It's definitely not the best situation for anyone to be in, let alone somebody brand new to the area. But she finds a solution. She ends up splitting a cab with a man she met at the show, and spends the night at his apartment. While other teenagers might use this as an excuse to sleep in the next morning, Kristen doesn't. She makes it for her morning shift at Spinelli's without skipping a beat. It really seems like she found a good balance between having fun and keeping up with her responsibilities. Things seem to be going great for Kristen. Until she misses her first day of class at Berkeley on Tuesday, June 24th. Now, we do have some conflicting reporting on what happens next. A lot of articles we have detailing Kristen's case say that on the 25th, one of her roommates, 24-year-old Griffin Cherry, called Kristen's parents to tell them that she was missing, and that he'd already told the Oakland Police Department. However, in an interview with Paul Boyd for WSOC-TV, Kristen's father Bob said, quote, "We wound up calling the house where Kristen was renting a room and found out that she had been missing, and nobody had bothered to call us to let us know," end quote. So I'm going to go with Kristen's dad on this one. But at this point, he's really not panicking. He adds that when he got this information, he assumed that there must have been some type of misunderstanding. That is, until he followed up with the Oakland PD. It seems that no one had seen Kristen since she left her shift on the morning of Monday, June 23rd. Her roommates explained that they assumed Kristen was just out with friends. I mean, as we know, she has stayed the night in another location on at least one occasion. But when Kristen still wasn't home by Wednesday, they did become concerned. So when Kristen's parents hear all of this and confirm that she actually is missing, it sends them into a state of shock, but they do still take action. They catch the first flight out of North Carolina that they can on Friday, June 27th. From the airport, they drive directly to the Oakland Police Department. They get there at about 4 p.m. According to reporting by Matt Birkback for Reader's Digest, when her parents finally get there and speak to the officer at the front desk, they're told that the detective assigned to Kristen's case has left for the weekend. It's disappointing, but not as disappointing as what they hear next. Of course, Kristen's parents aren't just going to sit by for the weekend and wait for something to happen. They want to know what's being done. And the officer tells them that there's basically nothing to be done. At this point, they don't consider Kristen's case to be a high priority. Though she's technically an adult, they're treating her case kind of like a runaway, voluntarily missing. But again, Kristen's parents are not giving up. They hire private investigator Graham Desvernine, and he's not just any run-of-the-mill PI. He's former FBI and became the chairman of the board of the World Investigators Network. He's good and has influence, which I'll talk about in just a bit. That weekend, Kristen's family and the PI get right to work. Desvernine begins interviewing Kristen's roommates and coworkers, while her family canvasses the area handing out flyers. Kristen's little sister Megan was only 7, but she also helps in the efforts. They get a lot done over the weekend. When they speak to Kristen's roommates, they say Kristen wasn't home very often. She'd usually leave for work around dawn and spend her afternoons exploring the city, art galleries, and beaches. Of course, they take a look at her room too, and it was untouched. Her laundry was still hanging on the clothesline in the back, and it's discovered that she left behind an uncashed payroll check for about $400. Combine that with the fact that Kristen's Berkeley class was already paid for in full, it looks like she had every intention of coming back. By the end of the weekend, they are able to put together a pretty solid timeline of Kristen's last day to share with the Oakland Police Department on Monday.
Insurance isn't one size fits all. That's why customers have enjoyed Progressive's Name Your Price tool for years now. With the Name Your Price tool, you tell them what you want to pay, and they'll show you options that fit your budget. So whether you're picking out your first policy or just looking for something that works better for you and your family, they make it easy to see your options. Visit Progressive.com. Find a rate that works for you with the Name Your Price tool. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
What they did to your family, you're lucky to make it out alive.
Streaming on Peacock.
These men are going to come after me. Taking them out is my only chance.
Put a bullet in her head.
From the co-creator of Ozark.
Looks like a family was running drugs.
Execution-style killing, it's rare for the keys. Any leads on who they might have been running for?
The cartel killed my family. I'm gonna kill them. All of them.
MIA. Streaming now. Only on Peacock.
After a full weekend of investigating and canvassing, Kristen's family and the PI they hired were able to compile a timeline of Kristen's last movements before she went missing. Here's what they found. Kristen made it to her 7 a.m. shift at Spinelli's. During her shift, she asks her coworkers for directions to an area called Land's End in San Francisco, but she also mentions going home after work. At 3 p.m., Kristen clocks out. She's wearing her black Spinelli shirt, tan pants, and a long-sleeved blue plaid flannel shirt. She's also carrying a green Jansport backpack with a black mesh pocket. And there is something out of the ordinary at this point. Kristen hangs out in the Crocker Galleria Mall. Now, the act itself isn't the most alarming, obviously. It's just not something she normally does. She's usually running somewhere after work. But for some reason, on this day, Kristen sticks around for a bit. And at 3:45 p.m., one of her coworkers sees her on the second floor of the mall talking to a blonde woman. This is the last official sighting of Kristen at this point. So her family and the PI take all of this to the Oakland PD. And at this point, Detective Mahaney, the head of the Missing Person Division, says that due to the involvement of the PI, they put Kristen's case in the priority pile. He would later say, quote, "At the time, we had over 800 open missing persons cases. Those included runaways, which were probably 90% of the caseload. Another 5% were people who just wanted to duck away for a while. There were very few cases like Kristen's." End quote. And it seems clear that Kristen likely didn't leave on her own accord with no intention of returning. Kristen's sister Allison tells investigators that when she last spoke to her a few days before she went missing, it seemed like she was having the dream summer. They actually promised to continue their conversation at another time after being interrupted. Again, everything is pointing to Kristen not leaving voluntarily. So they get to work to try to figure out what happened. They do all the routine things like check hospitals and jails, but nobody has seen Kristen. They interview her roommates, and they appear to be very consistent and forthcoming, so they're all cleared. But speaking with them does bring up a large point of confusion in her last movements. They say that about 48 hours before Kristen was last seen, she went to a party at a beach in Land's End. But this contradicts what Kristen's coworkers say, at least in a way. Remember, they say Kristen asked for directions to Land's End that last day. But if she'd already attended a party there, that doesn't really make any sense. Many investigators have talked about this in Kristen's case, and in the end, they weren't able to confirm if Kristen ever attended the party. In fact, they weren't able to confirm that the party ever happened at all. But this, again, gets even more complicated when the PI brings in bloodhounds. They track Kristen's scent from Crocker Galleria out the door, then they go west on Geary Street into the Tenderloin neighborhood. This leads the PI to believe that Kristen may have taken the 38 Geary Mooney bus to Land's End, and Mahaney says outright to SF Gate that she probably did. Now, the dogs would later pick up her scent again near the Sutro baths at Land's End, but they lost the scent near the water and near a tunnel by the baths. They actually do this twice and get the same exact result. So let's talk about this area. It was designed by a very rich man named Adolph Sutro in 1894, hence the name Sutro Baths. It's north of Ocean Beach and physically separated from the ocean. It kind of looks like an infinity pool elevated above the beach. It's honestly a beautiful area, and it attracts a lot of tourists and locals. So it's complicated. It seems that Kristen was there at some point, hence the dogs picking up her scent. But was it at the party a few days before she went missing? Or did she go there after work on the day she was last seen? Maybe it was both. The fear is obviously that something happened at the beach, whether it was foul play or an accident like being caught by a rogue wave. Either way, the lead is so promising that the Coast Guard and U.S. Parks Police are brought in to search, but nothing's found. They also learn that there's basically no federal or state funding to help them expand their search. Kristen's family says that they knew that they were on their own, but that they weren't giving up. In fact, Debbie says, quote, "You can either crawl in a hole and die and give up, or you can fight," end quote. So they fight. They buy billboard space and contact every media outlet they can to help share Kristen's case. And we know that with media coverage often comes new leads. On July 10th, an anonymous man called the KGO TV news station with a tip about Kristen's case. He said that he lived near Kristen's workplace and he knows what happened to her. So here's what he says. He claims that 2 women made sexual advances towards Kristen, and when she tried to fight them off, they killed her. He says this all happened in a car near the Old Tower Records store on Market Street in Castro. Then they drove over the Golden Gate Bridge and dumped her body, quote, by a wooden bridge on the way to Point Reyes, end quote. The caller points his finger to 2 employees at the YMCA. But when Mahaney speaks with the women, he doesn't seem to find the tip credible, and they're cleared soon after. Eventually, police were able to trace the call to 36-year-old John Anuma. But he says it was all a prank. He was just trying to get back at the women for supposedly getting his girlfriend fired. It's obviously cruel. But in giving this false tip, he ends up shining a huge spotlight on himself. It seems he has a known history of abusing women he met through personal ads, which is terrifying because eventually police discover a copy of the San Francisco Bay Guardian in Kristen's room. And when they take a closer look, they see that there's a personal ad circled. It says, quote, "Friends, female seeking friends to share activities, who enjoy music, photography, working out, walks, coffee, or simply enjoying the beach, exploring the Bay Area. Interested, call me," end quote. It's a huge lead that could point to John. The problem is they don't know if Kristen put the ad out herself or if someone else did. So they go to the publisher. But they say that they've purged the records and don't have a way to see who posted it or if anyone responded. It's a huge letdown. This is still one of the biggest mysteries in Kristen's case. Did she post the ad or did she plan on responding to the ad? Unfortunately, we can't say for sure even to this day. But due to the wording of the ad lining up so closely with Kristen's interest, police do think that she likely placed it herself. So they go all in on John at this point. They track down the girlfriend that John claims was wrongfully fired from the YMCA, and they discover something very interesting in her diary. It seems that some of the pages are missing. Pages from before Kristen went missing. They look like they've been ripped out. When investigators ask her about this, she says John ripped them out, telling her that what she wrote could hurt him. But she also denies knowing anything about Kristen or ever meeting her. So take that for what you will. They also speak to an ex of John's who tells them he'd threatened her in the past, saying, quote, "You know I'm going to have to kill you. I can't let you go. Now you know what happened to Kristen Modafferi." End quote. There's obviously some pretty scary stuff against John at this point, so they get search warrants to look at his home. But all they really find is blood that after testing proves not to be human. They speculate that he killed one of his ex-girlfriend's cats out of revenge. It's obviously a very horrible thing, but it's not enough for them to arrest John for anything related to Kristen, so nothing happens. And John denies everything. He says his ex was lying about his threat to kill her, and that he never met Kristen. But obviously investigators still have their doubts. The theory that John may have done something to Kristen was also highlighted on an episode of America's Most Wanted. They say they want to talk to John again, and they speculate that he may have used the personal ad to lure Kristen to her death. The show also features some women from John's past who accuse him of things like holding them against their will, torturing them, and burning them with cigarettes. But John continues to maintain his innocence.
Where is Daredevil?
I'm right here. Don't miss the return of Marvel Television's Daredevil Born Again.
So what's next?
I feel liberated.
We're gonna take this city back.
Over-medicated.
In an all-new season, now streaming only on Disney+.
They're hunting us. It's time we started hunting them.
I can work with that.
This should be tons of fun.
Marvel Television's Daredevil Born Again, now streaming only on Disney+.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Just a few months after 18-year-old Kristen Modafferi goes missing, police don't have much. They can't find the blonde woman she was last seen talking to near her work, and they never do. They can't say for sure she went to Land's End, even though her scent is tracked there. And they can't definitively link their most promising person of interest to her disappearance either. So for the most part, her case just sits. Of course, there's some movement over the years, or at least tips. A psychic calls to say Kristen was being held captive in Texas, but that was investigated and cleared. That really seems to be the most notable event in her case that's been made public. At this point, Kristen's loved ones want to ensure that no one has to face the challenges they have in her case in terms of assistance and funding. So they work to pass Kristen's Act. It's a bill that provides funding to launch a national registry for at-risk missing adults. In 2009, it was allocated additional funding to help train law enforcement agencies and nonprofits. U.S. Representative Susan Myrick said, quote, "No family should ever be told that resources are not available to help find their loved ones. Since it was first passed, Kristen's Act has helped countless families find the family members and the answers that they were looking for." End quote. So we have another family who turned their pain into purpose. It's bittersweet. Kristen's legacy is going on to help others, while her case remains unsolved. But around the same time in early 2010, there's a shift when the San Francisco office of the FBI takes over the case. They go back over everything. All the tips, all the leads, everything in those case files. They also put up billboards with Kristen's information and the number for a tip line, and they re-interview witnesses. By the end of the year, really to everyone's shock, they cleared John Enuma as a suspect. However, it is extremely worth noting that the Oakland PD disagreed with this finding and maintains that John is a person of interest to this day. In the end, the FBI closed the case saying that they did not find any evidence of foul play. But let's flash forward a few years to 2015, because we know Kristen's family is not giving up. They find a new PI. His name is Paul Dosty. He's a former police sergeant and forensic investigator. He offers to work for them pro bono. He's also the handler of a 3-legged lab named Buster. And Buster comes with his own accolades. He's known as the Wonder Dog due to his work in locating the remains of missing World War II soldiers. It seems like a pretty solid duo. When Kristen's family connects with Dosty, they discuss the investigation, and they believe that one theory that hadn't been fully explored was the idea that Kristen may have made it back to the apartment on Jane Avenue. It looks like one thing the Oakland PD never did was bring dogs to the property back in 1997. So on June 25th, 2015, Dosty and Buster went to Kristen's last known residence, and Buster alerted to the scent of human decomposition. This was at a drainage pipe downhill from the home and at the vents leading to the basement of the property. It feels like a huge discovery, but it's obviously also not that cut and dry. It's been almost 20 years since Kristen lived here, so they have to gather more information before concluding that she was killed there. They collect soil samples from the basement floor, which Dosty says can help him determine if there were any human remains within the soil and a possible time of death. At this time, he tells WSOC-TV, quote, "There is human decomposition present here, 100%. The question, is that the source of that decomposition? And that's what we hope to get with the soil analysis." End quote. While that's sent off for testing, Dosty urges the Oakland PD to re-interview Kristen's roommates and to excavate what he calls a poorly finished concrete slab in the basement. And the Oakland PD does assist. They bring in specialists from Chico State to use ground-penetrating radar in the basement. They find an area of interest and decide to dig, but they don't find anything. They add that due to the dense clay found while digging, it would have made burying a body there incredibly difficult. So this all kind of just sits until February 2017, when Dosty returns to the apartment with forensic anthropologist Dr. Arpad Voss. He claims to have this proprietary device that can detect human decomposition. He says that through using this device, he found blood on a set of steps of a porch near the home. Dosty told ABC7 News, quote, "That we feel is the source, and most likely Kristen's blood there. It is human blood, but we don't get an indication of burial. It's more of a crime scene." End quote. Dosty adds that after testing, what they found was a match to Kristen's parents' DNA. Of course, her family is extremely hopeful at this point. They believe this could be the break in the case that they've been looking for. The problem was, law enforcement can't confirm this match. Basically, due to this proprietary technology, they can't independently recreate his process and do the testing to confirm the claim. And in 2018, they claim that Dr. Voss didn't provide them with the necessary data or samples to do so. But Voss and Dosty refute this. They say police do have the technology to perform what's called gas chromatograph mass spectrometer testing. But as far as we know, that's never been done. And officials do still discount these claims from Dr. Voss and Dosty. Patrick Mahaney and other officials have also been skeptical of the soil samples, saying that the alerting of human remains could have been from a broken sewer pipe, ashes from a cremation, or even ancient Native American burial grounds. So basically, none of this was ever confirmed by law enforcement. And Dr. Voss's technology remains controversial as of recording this episode. There have been a few other theories explored in Kristen's case, like that a violent criminal from a neighboring halfway house may have been involved, and that convicted murderer Robert Durst may be to blame, but neither has been confirmed. Durst died in prison in 2022, and if he did do anything to Kristen or knew anything about her disappearance, he took that with him to the grave. Unfortunately, that same year, Kristen's father Bob passed away as well. Despite dedicating so much of his life to finding out what happened to his daughter, he never did. Patrick Mahaney leans towards the theories that something happened to Kristen at either Land's End or at a bridge in Marin County connected to John Enuma. But those theories have never been confirmed either, and Kristen's case remains open and unsolved. Which brings me right to our call to action. Kristen's family, specifically her sisters and mother, hold on to hope that recent advances in forensic genealogy may be what finally solves her case. But we know all these feelings are complicated. Kristen's sister Megan says that the word closure is complicated, and that confirmation is terrifying because it means something very horrifying likely happened to Kristen. She adds that the world is a dark place when you look too closely, and that the years of searching have stripped away the childhood hope she once had. Kristen's other sisters, Allison and Lauren, said that they feel robbed of so many milestones they should have been able to share with Kristen, but they imagine that she would have been a Harry Potter fan, and possibly a museum curator. Her mom Debbie's in her 70s now, but holds out hope that Kristen may be found alive someday. So please share. Again, we know what media can do for a case, good and bad. 2027 will mark 30 years since Kristen has gone missing. 30 years of milestones missed with her family, her mom, sisters, and her friends. They deserve answers, and your share may lead to the tip that brings those answers. So please share. As a reminder, Kristen Modafferi was 18 years old when she was last seen at the Crocker Galleria Mall in San Francisco, California on June 23, 1997. She is white with brown hair and brown eyes. At the time of her disappearance, she was 5'6" and weighed approximately 140 pounds. If you have any information, please call the Oakland PD at 510-238-3775. But as always, thank you, I love you, and I'll talk to you next time. Voices for Justice is hosted and produced by me, Sarah Turney, and is a Voices for Justice media original. If you love what we do here, please don't forget to follow, rate, and review the show in your podcast player. It's an easy and free way to help us and help more people find these cases in need of justice. Welcome to the Secret After Show. The studio door is open and our emotional support puppies, Popcorn and Heber, are in the room. Popcorn is right on my lap. But let's go right into the case. I think there's something I deeply identified with Kristen in this story, right? And it's the 90s. It's that dream of, going to California and living out all your dreams, going to the beach, getting a tan, seeing all the best bands, and going to Disneyland. It was just like I tried to portray in the episode. I hope I did. It feels like such a different time, and that it was really like this land of hope and dreams and the American dream as a whole. And really, Kristen was such an ambitious teenager, up at 7, working 2 jobs, taking classes. Kristen was the American dream. And there really is something about that makes me so emotional. Obviously, these things should never happen to anybody, right? But to see this girl land in California on her 18th birthday, Friday the 13th, she's seeing Fiona Apple, right before Criminal becomes this smash hit. It's just heartbreaking. She and everyone who goes missing, everybody who gets murdered, deserves so much more. Now, I wanted to talk about, I've seen, of course, we know how true crime goes, right? There's always blaming in cases like this. People saying that Kristen's parents should have never let her go. And I just wanted to say, 1, she was 18. There's nothing really you can do, right? And 2, she should have been able to go. Like her dad was right. It would have been and should have been an amazing experience for her. But because of bad people, that's not what ended up happening. And I just wanted to say it's not her parents' fault. Which leads me into my next talking point that this family did everything right. They hopped on a plane and brought their family out there. They hired this PI immediately, right? That led to her case being put in the priority pile. They did everything right. But still, there's just no answers. And this is a case where it does truly feel like there are so many possibilities as to what could have happened to her. It's just hard. I feel like so heartbroken for them. Like, I'm crushed for this family and for Kristen. And like, I don't know, it's just hitting me really hard. I'm just crushed to see such a good kid, right? She just turned 18. I can call her a kid, right? This good kid, and have this happen to her and have her family try so hard for so long over so many decades, and there's still just no answers. I don't know. It just breaks my heart, and I don't mean to get emotional, but I've said it before and I'll say it again. The moment I stop getting emotional about these cases is the moment I should stop doing this work. Now, in terms of media discrepancies, I pretty much addressed them in the episode. There's not a ton. Luckily, there was some fantastic reporting from SFGate in this case. They have done a very, very thorough job, along with a handful of others, right? This is a very well-documented case, given the limited amount of information that we have. But let's go on to the hero of the episode, which is no surprise I picked her family, again for jumping into action, doing everything they can, and still continuing to push her case forward. It's not easy. It's also not easy to hold out that hope. So I just hope that wherever they are, they know that they did everything they could. But let's go on to our segment of hope. I am reading an article from CNN, and the title reads, DNA from cigarette helps identify teenager's killer nearly 44 years after her death. This is from February 2026 by Maria Aguilar Prieto. And this is about the disappearance of Sarah Greer in 1982. She was 13 and last seen leaving her friend's house in Cloverdale, California on the evening of May 23rd, 1982. And it is really nothing short of horrific. The next morning, a firefighter basically found her body. They said that she'd been dragged down an alley to a secluded area near an apartment building and behind a fence where she was sexually assaulted and strangled. According to the article, the first big break in the case was in 2003. That's when they were able to develop a DNA profile based on the sperm collected from her underwear. But at that time, the profile wasn't a match to anyone whose DNA was available for comparison in law enforcement databases. The case was reopened in 2021, and that's when they started digging into genetic genealogy. And they got a match. The DNA evidence collected from Sarah belonged to one of 4 brothers, including a man named James Unick. At that point, the FBI and it looks like local investigators began conducting surveillance. And at that point, they grabbed a discarded cigarette butt. A DNA analysis of the cigarette confirmed James Unick's DNA matched the 2003 profile. It also matched other DNA samples collected from Sarah's clothing the day that she was killed. He was arrested in July 2024 at his home in Willows, California. And then finally, on February 13th of 2026, on what would have been Sarah's 57th birthday, he was found guilty. According to prosecutors, he will be sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, but that is scheduled for April 23rd. It truly is amazing just to see these older cases get reopened and solved so definitively, too, through DNA. It just feels like maybe at this point we need to open some type of special DNA task force into these older cases. Because I feel like it's week after week after week we're reading about a case that is so similar to this on the segment of hope, which is fantastic. I love to see all these cases getting solved and getting more answers. But at this point, I kind of want to ask the question of what do we do about it? It feels like investigators are just kind of randomly picking up cases and reopening them. And I wonder what something like a federal task force to retest these cases with DNA might look like. I don't know. And I know that I kind of just went off on a tangent, but it just kind of popped into my head right now. And of course, you guys know I worked with Season of Justice to fund law enforcement agencies to do testing just like this. But again, it feels like the cases getting solved are so dependent on, an investigator picking it back up or, a certain department having an initiative to go back through cold cases. Like, at what point do we make this a larger priority with more funding to get obviously dangerous people who are still out there, like this gentleman, I shouldn't call him a gentleman, this guy, off the streets? It feels like we could have so many more answers and so many more dangerous perpetrators imprisoned if we just funded these things. But again, it makes our segment of hope for obvious reasons. And I have to tell you, when I read the part about Sarah getting that conviction on her birthday, there's something just so cosmically, tragic and beautiful about that, if that makes sense. And as always, I just send so much love to her family and friends and everyone who knew her. But as always, thank you, I love you, and I'll talk to you next time.